When we moved into this house, it was terrible out here, overgrown. I'll show a picture of what it looked like then. This is what it looks like now, and it looks way better, but we have a few things I still want to do. I want to get lights hung up here, and I want to get our raised garden bed back there. So that's actually what we're going to do today. We got to get the raised garden bed built so we can get it filled, get stuff planted in it, and get our garden going. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bring you guys along for the ride. Let's do it. As you may or may not be able to see, these are 8-foot boards here. So we're doing an 8-foot, I'm basically doing an L shape right here. It's gonna be 8 foot by 8 foot, and then it's gonna basically cut out a 4-foot section there on the opposite corner. So if that doesn't make sense, I'll put a drawing that I did of it on screen right now. So basically 2 sides of these, I don't even have to worry about cutting. These should be 8 foot long. I just gotta get the 4x4s attached to them to hold them up, and we're doing 4 of these high. These are 2x6s. We're gonna do 4 of these high. So I'm just gonna go ahead, I gotta cut a few pieces so I can actually lay this out here and make sure it's gonna fit how I thought it was gonna fit. And then we're gonna go from there. Let's do it. So like I mentioned, I need to now cut down these boards to their 4-foot length. So as you can see here, my saw is not quite big enough to be able to handle this cut. So I have to do it in 2 passes here, but you know what, I got it done. Also, as you can see, the blade guard here is gonna cause me to kind of get caught up a little bit, but you know what, eventually we make it through and it is all good. Then after this, I could get to actually laying it out, and so I knew exactly where I was putting each board and what board was overlapping what. My issue here was I knew that once I started screwing it together, if I didn't have a visual of exactly what boards were overlapping, I would completely mess this up by the time I went to put it together. So actually what I did was I put an X on the spot of the board that was going to be covered up by the board next to it. The easiest way to think about this is if it gets overlapped on one end, it does not get overlapped on the other. And after that, I could start actually cutting all my pieces. Okay, with the 4-foot sections cut, I could start screwing them together. I started with the 8-foot sections, which for this one, I used 3 of the 2x4s spaced out evenly and screwed them to my 2x6s. After that, I started doing the 4-foot sections. I attached one 4x4 to one end of the wall because the other 4x4 for the other end was on the section that I previously put together, which is why I needed to plan this out. Also, you'll notice that I started using a strap to hold the boards tight to each other while screwing to avoid any gaps resulting in unstraight boards. Also, this is the only section that I put both of the 4x4s on, and I'll explain why here in a second. Now that I had all the walls but one built, I could start putting them together. And this was really easy. I just worked my way around, getting it close to level as I went. Once I got to this point, I grabbed the 4-foot section with the 2 4x4s on it and butted up against the previous wall. The reason this section has 2 4x4s is because I didn't want a 4x4 on the outside of the bed because I wanted this corner to sit up right against the concrete. But once I had the wall held in place, I actually had to take that 4x4 off so that way I could get all the screws all the way down the wall, connecting the 2 walls together, and then put the 4x4 back. After that, it was time to get the final wall put together. Now that we had it built, it was time to get it ready to be filled. So what I did here is I wrapped it all in plastic because I did use treated lumber. So I wanted to try and keep as much of the chemicals in the wood away from the garden as possible. So I wrapped the whole thing in plastic, and then I laid down some hardware cloth just to keep gophers or anything else that might come up from the bottom and get into the garden out of the garden. Not too concerned about it, but it was suggested to me to do it, so I decided to go ahead and do it. And be careful, if you're using this stuff, it does get really sharp And with the hardware cloth done, I could start filling it in with rocks. And I bought 12 bags of rocks, thinking that was gonna be enough. Quickly found out that I was wrong. I knew I was gonna need some more, and with the price of rocks and everything else right now, I decided I didn't want to go buy more rocks. So actually what I did is I have these leftover pavers from this area when we first bought the house, and I decided just to throw those in here as well and use those just to kind of take up space. Looking back, I definitely should have used more because I have a lot of these. And with the rocks finally done, we could move on to filling the garden bed with sticks and logs. And this not only takes up more space, but as they break down, they'll add nutrients to the soil, I think. That's what I've been told. I'm not a professional gardener. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I was told to put these in here, so that's what we're doing. Also, as you see here, I got smart and started using a ramp to run the wheelbarrow up the side of the garden. I knew it was gonna hold me because I stood on it before after I got it built. So I knew it was gonna hold, so I just put that on the side. That way I can run the wheelbarrow right up the side and dump it in. What I'm doing here is just trying to compact the sticks just a little bit more. Yes, obviously I know I'm trying to take up space, but I don't want all the dirt settling down in there later and causing big gaps, so I figured let's just step on it, compact it a little bit, and we should be fine. And then we finally got to the dirt, and it actually took me 2 of these bedfuls of dirt to fill this garden, and I still had to go and pick up a couple bags of topsoil just to top it off. But same process as the sticks, wheeled it up the ramp, dumped it in, and then worked on spreading it out once I got a pretty good sized pile in there. And with that, the garden bed was ready for planting. And I think it turned out really good, as you can see here. It's been a few weeks since I planted, so the plants are actually growing really well. But I think the bed itself turned out really nice. And of course I can't stop there. I need to tie this to a smart home video somehow. So next up, I hung up my Lumary smart outdoor lights, and these are fantastic. I've done a full review on these lights, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it up in the YouTube card. You can check that out if you want to after this video. But I picked up this string light hanging kit on Amazon, and it was super easy to install. I'll link it up down in the description if you want to go check it out. And it came with just about everything I needed. The only thing not included was basically something to weatherproof the screw holes. So I started out just by getting my location picked for these brackets and got them installed. It was as easy as pre-drilling a hole for the top hole, then putting the screw in, and then marking the spot so I could pre-drill the second hole. And then I basically put silicone on them to make sure that I wasn't gonna get any water inside my siding. And because I was doing a triangle shape for the cable for these lights, I only had to do this one other time on my siding. So it was just as simple as wash, rinse, repeat, then I could move on to the post. And because I was installing these into a wooden post, it made it super easy to install. I just basically screwed them right in, no troubles at all. Next up, it was time to get the wire cut to length and get the actual ends put on them. And so like I said, everything was included with this except for something to cut the wires with. So I did have to grab that out of my toolbox, but everything else, I had this double rope clamp that I was able to get the wire run through and then put a hook on the end of it for one end and then the turnbuckle on the other to be able to tighten it down. Once both wires were done, I was ready to actually start hanging them up there. So I did the hooks on the house side and the turnbuckles on the post side. And that was because I wanted to be able to, if I had to take these down, I wanted to be able to do the turnbuckles in the same place without having to move around a bunch of times to get both the wires down. But I got them up there, and what I would do is I'd get them up there close and then I'd loosen the double rope clamp a little bit, pull a little bit more cable through if I needed to, retighten it, and then do the turnbuckles to get the final tighten. And with that, it was time to actually start hanging these lights. And I chose to use twist ties. I had zip ties to use for these as well, but you know, I test so many lights on this channel that I figured there is a chance that I'll test more lights like these in the future. So let's just go with twist ties for now. And with that last twist tie, the patio was done. Well, for the most part with these two things. I'm sure I'm gonna change something eventually, but for now, we're gonna call this project done. And I think it turned out really nice. I'm loving how this looks. I'm gonna leave you guys here with a couple shots of what it looks like at night. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, I put things on screen for you guys to click on if you want to do that. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next video.